Shabbat Shalom. This week, we are in the book of Exodus. We are in the portion called Bo, which lists the last three plagues that God brought upon the Egyptians in order to force Pharaoh to free the Israelites. I remember this wonderful story told by Rabbi Sidney Greenberg of blessed memory I share with you about the plague of darkness. A 10-year-old yeshiva student studied for the first time about the plagues that were visited upon the ancient Egyptians. The ninth plague he learned was darkness, a darkness so thick that they saw not one another. He asked his Rebbe, what kind of plague was that? After all, they could have lit their lamps and been able to see despite the darkness. Isn't that what they did nearly every night when it got dark? The Rebbe smiled, indicating that he was not displeased by this question. Patting the boy on his head, he said, the darkness from which the Egyptians suffered was a special kind of darkness. It was not a darkness that affected the eyes. It was a darkness that affected the heart. Physically, they were able to see, but they didn't feel for each other. They didn't care for one another. This is what the Torah means when it says they saw not one another. They were blind to each other's needs. Each person saw only himself or herself, and that is a terrible plague. Perhaps the Rebbe's answer cannot be harmonized with the literal meaning of the Torah text, but this much is certain. He taught that young boy a lesson that goes to the very essence of Judaism. Much as Judaism is concerned with the relationship between the human being and God, it is no less concerned with the relationship between one human being and another. Judaism expects us that we shall see each person as a human being who has needs, feelings, fears, hungers, hopes, just as we do. Who is a child of God just as we are? Who is fully entitled to be treated with the dignity, justice, and compassion we claim for ourselves? Friends, this message is desperately needed in our time. We have seen the division, the discourse, the difficulty and challenge this country faces. We need to be able to see one another, to feel what each other needs. A great deal depends upon our ability to see one another. I pray that as we celebrate in the Torah the exodus of our Israelite ancestors to freedom, that we might too work with one another through the darkness to see the needs each of every American citizen has, that this country under the leadership of the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden Jr., and his Vice President Kamala Harris will indeed bring us from darkness into light. I pray that all of us will be enlightened by this new leadership in Washington, D.C., and may God bless us all, the leaders of our country, and all of us as Americans today. Shabbat Shalom.